Multi-quote budget template. This template allows you to enter up to three quotes for each item and then select the best option. I've sent this to a few friends and so far the feedback has been very good. So let's take a quick tour of the file. This is the intro sheet here, the first sheet. The second sheet is where we enter in some initial data. We give it a name, budget amount, and some vendor names, and budget categories and percent. Next, the third sheet is the input sheet. This blue area is where you enter all the data, and I'll demonstrate that in a few minutes. And over here, these are all formulas that generate based off our selections. Sheet 4 is a summary of all of our data that you can look at to help you decide if you want to change some of your budget amounts or budget vendors. So we'll go back to Settings. We'll go to this cell, this step 1. Give your budget a name, and let's call it Treehouse, because we're going to build a treehouse. In this cell, I'm going to say $5,000. That's what we think we'd like to spend. And then I'll just go down to vendor names. I'm going to quickly enter some vendors. And these vendor names will be what will appear in the drop-down list over here. So when you enter the different vendor names for a particular item, this is what you would see in this little list here. Back to Settings. Now we want to enter some budget categories. So building a treehouse, obviously we're going to need some nails, a lot of wood, maybe some cement for the base, and some paint, maybe for the inside or the outside, whatever it may be. Here we're going to enter in the percent target. So of that $5,000, what's the percent that we want to spend on nails? So let's just say that amount is 15%. Press enter. 15% of $5,000 is $750. Now wood. Let's say we know that over half of that $5,000 will be spent on wood. We can always come back here and change it later. I'm going to type in 60 and just press enter. And that comes out to $3,000. Cement. Let's assume that it's just going to be a small amount of cement. We'll type in 5, press enter. And you notice down here, so far, if you add up these three, it's 80%. We have 20% left. So for now, let's just say we'll put in a 20%. You could also do something like this. I'll just right-click clear to clear that cell. Let's say we don't really need to spend that much on paint, and I put in 14%. We've got add 6%, 6% left. Let's just say that the wood might cost more. I'll just add 6 to the 60%, type in 66, press enter, and now it's all adding up to $5,000. So 15% is equal to this, 60% all the way across, $5,000. Everything's been allocated. Now we're going to go over to input sheet and start to type in some of the items. The first one, let's pick nails. All right. So, well, it's kind of obvious, but get good quality nails. Whatever, some kind of description. First vendor, let's just say we're going to go with the lumber house. They sell nails, and they say it's a quote of $1,000. Hit tab. Who's our second choice here? Okay, Home Depot. They say it's only going to be $800. And let's just say there's only 2 places that we're going to go to for nails. There's no other options. It's too far away. So we're going to go over here and say yes. And I created this because a friend of mine said, well, what if I want to turn off this item temporarily, but I don't want to have to remove all this information, and then if I change my mind, bring it all back later. So you can change it to no if you don't want to include that in your budget, but still leave it there to look at it. But for now, we'll click yes. And now in this cell, select winning quote. Of those 2 quotes, which one are we going with? Quote 1, which would be the lumber house, $1,000, or quote 2, which would be Home Depot, $800. and we won't obviously pick quote 3 because we left that blank. So we'll go with the Home Depot for $800. So it selects Home Depot because I quote 2. It's right here. $800. If we were to change our mind and select quote 1, we would save $200 because, oh, actually no, it's minus $200 because that quote would be more money. That's $1,000. So we're not going to be saving any money, and this is just 0 because that's the quote that we have selected. If we pick quote 2, we already have that quote. Let's go to the next line. Now we're going to pick wood and just make some comment about pre-treated, whatever. You know, there's all these different things you can do with wood. Here we will say Dan's Lumber, and maybe that quote comes in at $2,800. We tell them exactly what we need, the amount of wood, the type of wood. Here we say the Lumber House, and they come in at $3,300. And for this one, because it's a big cost, we go to a third potential vendor. We say, let me see here, who could it be? We've got those two. The Lumber House, we have that. Home Depot, I don't even know if they sell wood. We'll say $3,500. And obviously we have to have wood, so we're picking yes. And which quote wins? Well, let's just go with the Lumber House. Quote 2. So now we see the Lumber House. Quote 2 is this one here, $3,300. How much would we save if we go with quote 1, which would be Dan's Lumber? $500. That's the difference between $3,300 and $2,800. What if we go with quote 3? Well, that would be more money, so it's a negative $200 because this one is more than $3,500 is worth more than this one. Let's just do one more. We will pick paint. I'll just skip over cement. And we want, let's say, buy blue paint. Who knows? Buy blue paint. Go over here, and let's pick the paint store. And paint is $1,000. So that's the quote we get from those guys. The next one, let's just say it's the Home Depot, and they say it's going to be $1,400. So now we say yes, we want to include this item, and we are going to pick quote 1 this time. The paint store, $1,000. We're not going to save any money if we go with quote 2. It would actually be more money, so we leave it at that. And yeah, let's just pick the last thing now. We need some cement. I don't even know anything about cement, so let's just say we will go in here and pick Todd Cement, and we're going to say $500. And you actually could leave this one blank just to show you. You could come over here and select Home Depot. For whatever reason, let's say you had one here, you could come back later and just clear that off. Home Depot for cement, let's say it's $400, and yes, we want to include this, and we're going to go with quote 3. So quote 3 is the Home Depot, $400. It's if we were to go with quote 1, it would be $100 extra, and that's the cheapest quote. So we're not really going to save anything. So now that we've entered in all the essential things that we need, let's go to our dashboard and take a look. So these are the vendors we're dealing with, the categories, the percent target that we put in, and we know that look at this, we're a little bit over. So our budget was $5,000, and right now we're at $5,500. So our target amount, remember back here in settings, here's our target amount for the adds up to 100%. We jump back over to the dashboard, the same numbers as you can see. This is generally speaking how much money we were thinking to spend, and the current amount based off of our selections in the input sheet. Current amount is $800 for the nails. We had thought maybe $750 based off of 15%. This one came exactly out to the amount. We were hoping to spend 3,300 and we did. Cement, we thought 250. We allocated 5%. We ended up saying $400. The paint 14%, which comes out to $700, but we went over. So percent of target, here we have, this one's right on. This one 16%, a little bit over the 15%, as you can tell that $800 is a little bit more than 750. So what if, oh, and of course, percent of current total. These percents are the current amounts based off of the current total, not off of this amount. So a couple different things going on here. This would be the percents looking at this figure. And these percents look at our budget target. Now, if the budget is very strict and we have to get down to $500, let's go back here and change one of these items to try to save a little bit of money. So it looks like over here, if I were to change this one, quote, if you select quote 1, let's change that, we'll say $500 it says. Change this to quote 1, and now they match. Look at that, look at that. So now we'll go over to dashboard, and the two totals are equal, and we can see all the percents. Very nice. So one last thing, when you come back here, of course you can enter more vendor names down below. You could even type on top of the ones that you have if you change your mind. You can add more budget categories. You can adjust the percent anytime you'd like. If it goes over, watch what happens. I type in 16%. It just tells us that we're a little bit over. We can adjust the target amount here, and of course you can add many more items all the way down.